If the WNBA does not get this right, they're going to ruin the league. So we typically do a Caitlin Clark watch where we talk about, what she did, how many how many rebounds, assists, turnovers, which she's leading the WNBA in turnovers the last time I checked, but that's neither here nor there because this is a topic that goes way beyond all of that. I'm talking about the way this girl is being targeted. Now I see a lot of other channels and podcasts, YouTube channels, all of that talking about the way that the media is portraying Caitlin Clark when it comes to her sexual orientation, her physical appearance, and how maybe some of the WNBA players who do not share the same sexual orientation as she does, do not share the same racial background, do not share the same, presentation or looks, right? That they're saying like this, it's unfair. It's, we've had stars here before Caitlin Clark. Everything doesn't revolve around her. And I've been like trying my best to be sensitive to all of that. This is a fantasy basketball channel. I want to make sure that I'm crystal clear. And I want to watch my words carefully because I don't want to disrespect anybody and I don't want to insult anybody. But let's keep it 100. Let's keep it a stack. Let's keep it super real. The WNBA would not be buzzing the way it's buzzing if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark. Say what you want to say. Pay what you want to pay. Lay where you want to lay. But at the end of the day, the league would not be buzzing the way it is if it wasn't for this young lady. So we recently had a matchup between the Chicago Sky and the Indiana Fever. And if you guys know a little bit about Caitlin Clark, there's an ongoing rivalry between Angel Reese, who was drafted by the Chicago Sky, and Caitlin Clark. One could argue that that is the equivalent of Bird versus Magic that kind of took the NBA to where it is, right? The NBA, the men's league, would not be where it is today if it wasn't for Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Back then, college basketball was more popular than professional basketball. And those two, especially in that, I believe, 1979 NCAA championship, had one of the biggest draws in television history for a sporting event. And they brought that over to the NBA at two of the most historic franchises in the league. Some are comparing that rivalry to Reese and Clark. And now, even though the Fever and the Sky don't have that kind of historic, reputation like the Celtics and the Lakers, those two figures are still polarizing women's, basketball players. They're polarizing figures in the space. So this game was the first time that they were going to play each other, and it was a big deal. It was nationally televised on ESPN, and I believe it was the Sky's first nationally televised game even, right? Their first ESPN game maybe. Any way you look at it, it was a huge opportunity, and it got ugly very quick. I believe it was in the third quarter of the game, but Chennedy Carter from the Sky screamed obscenity at Caitlin Clark and then caught her with a cheap shot in the back, like a hip check that kind of knocked her to the floor. Now, for me, I remember when Jokic hit Morris in the back and injured his back. Like it gave me that kind of a vibe, right? Now, in Kennedy's defense, she claimed that, or there was video that highlighted a slight nudge in the back from Caitlin Clark in the previous play. I watched the video, y'all. It was light. It wasn't something that would warrant you coming down the court and targeting me in that fashion. So that's one thing. This Chennedy Carter individual fouls Caitlin Clark. But here's where it gets ugly, y'all. I would think that would be a flagrant foul if you intentionally hit somebody in a non-basketball play. Like if you foul her and hip check her while you're trying to get a rebound, that's one thing. She just came down and targeted her. Like you think it would be a flagrant. I think they called it as like a common foul. The girl stayed in the game, like no big deal, which is wild to me that not only is this girl getting targeted, but the daggone league is not protecting her. I'm on the record saying this on this channel, on this podcast. If the WNBA does not get this right, they're going to ruin the league. They need to do everything they can do to protect their young star. You think that the NBA will let people do that kind of stuff to Wemby? Come on, man. Where they do that at? You literally have the most priceless asset to your league, and you out here not even protecting her? Which leads me to my next point. Matt Barnes did a video about this. Matt Barnes from the Up in Smoke podcast. Big shout out to them. Yo, this one hit home for me. He didn't even say like, yo, he was like, if the players want to target her, it is what it is. It's competition, right? It might be egregious the way they're approaching it, but he said, where are Caitlin Clark's teammates? Where are her teammates? So, like, she's a rookie, yo. Like, in the NBA, a lot of cases, if you see somebody like a star get bumped, 9 times out of 10, the star don't have to let Steph Curry get bumped like that and see what Draymond do. Draymond go into the house. He gonna hit somebody with the Jake the Snake Roberts DDT. Wrestling moves off the top turnbuckle if they mess with Steph Curry like that. And she is the equivalent of a Steph Curry for her team. So Matt Barnes, and I'll ask the same question, where are the teammates? Where are the teammates in this situation? So that's wild to me. But there's more. There is more. When she went down, nobody helped her up. Her teammates didn't rush to her. And I don't expect the Chicago Sky, players to help her up. Let her stay on the floor. It's a competition. But her teammates didn't even rush to her defense, which leads me to believe that there's a layer of jealousy and resentment around this woman who is bringing all kinds of life to your workplace, to your job. You know what I'm saying? There are like announcers out there, female announcers who are saying like, what do you want them to do? Y'all want them to throw a parade for her? Or, y'all want them to praise her, like bow down to her because they got chartered flights now? Because they got more viewership than they ever had in the history of the league? Multiple million viewer games. I think they have 3 or 4 games that the Fever had that had over 1 million viewers in the 30-something years that the WNBA did that. It was like the first night they had 1 million viewers and that was it. So in 30 years, you ain't have viewers like this. And now the person who's bringing it, the question is, do they need to bow down? Nah, you don't got to bow down to nobody, but you should like show some respect. They don't do that to any of the other players, yo. We haven't ever seen this in the men's game or the women's game where a player is being targeted like this. It is wrong. And WNBA, if y'all don't get it together, y'all gonna screw this up. I don't give a shit, Sue puppy. I would, by any means necessary, defend and protect the most valuable asset to my business and company. And you can't even really call it like a business all the way because most businesses are profitable. The WNBA hasn't been profitable. It might be now if you get this right. If you get this right. And before I leave this, because this is the last point on the Caitlin Clark, typically the Caitlin Clark watch, but I just got to go in on this one. Angel Reese, come on, sis. Really? Like, Angel Reese was actually hyping up her teammate for the cheap shot on Caitlin Clark. But the Chicago Sky fans ripped her because she only shot 22% that night in a loss. So you so busy pointing at your finger, waving your hand, sis, that it's affecting your play. So, like, focus on the game. Don't get caught up in all of the General Hospital soap opera antics. You know what I'm saying? Like, you are a gifted player. Focus on that. Focus on the game. Like, there was also some tweets that she put out. Her grammar was all off. She was saying, like, area instead of arena. Come on, ma. We can't do that. We got to be better than that. So, with that being said, if this falls on the ears of any WNBA fan, NBA coach, player, whatever, just know that I mean no disrespect when I say this, but if the WNBA does not get it right with Caitlin Clark, it will be the biggest mistake, a poop storm of epic proportions.